Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Said, He Said, an ADHD relationship. I'm your host, Anna. I am in a very loving long term relationship with my life partner, Craig, who was diagnosed with ADHD. Honey, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Craig, and as Anna said, I was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, in my early 40s actually.
So I've noticed there are tons of books, resources, videos, podcasts about how to deal with, how to cope and treat with ADHD, but really not enough resources for people like me who are in a relationship with ADHD partner, and how should we work with them and help them and work together to resolve daily challenges of living with ADHD. And that's why we're doing this podcast. And in this episode, we want to talk about how did we discover ADHD, because truth to be told, he didn't know he had ADHD until very later in life, and I didn't know he had ADHD. So we started dating, and I just sensed something was off about him, and he also sensed something was off about himself. He would often say to me, he said to me that he felt he had blockers, right, honey? Why did you, like, how did you feel the blockers without knowing ADHD back then?
I don't know. It's very interesting, and I think anybody with ADD or ADHD or that recently discovered it can relate to this. But there were times in my life where, like, I'll just bring it up. Like, there'd be a bill that needs to be paid, or maybe it's a parking ticket or something, and I know I have enough money to do it. And it's not hard to do it. It's not complicated, but I just wouldn't. And I always felt like there was something blocking me. And then also when it comes to my film career, because, I'm a filmmaker in Los Angeles, I was motivated. I was always motivated, very dedicated, very passionate, bright enough to see it, but there was always something blocking me from taking the next step. That's the only way I can put it. I never really understood it, but...
Yeah, I think for a lot of people who, in a relationship with ADHD partner, I think people who don't really understand this mental disorder, or as Craig would say, just the difference between right-handed people and left-handed people, because we don't want to see this as disorder. But anyway, so for people who don't understand this, they would think ADHD is something you made up or excuse, or something doesn't exist. But I for sure definitely felt something was wrong. For example, he was a starving artist, and I was a starving artist too. We live in Los Angeles, pursue filmmaking, and we had a conversation about, okay, you want to pursue filmmaking, which is great, but you're a starving artist. What's your plan of life? How do you how do you pay bills? And if the filmmaking career didn't take off, how do you live life? That was my questions back then, because I didn't feel like he had a really a solid foundation, or a grab. How do say that? Grab life. A solid hold of life. And we actually broke up once, and he felt like I was just trying to I was trying to seeking a rich guy, but really was not me trying to be materialism, trying to be a rich guy. My goal back then was we can pursue filmmaking, but we got also have a day job of some sense to support our dreams. And I said I sensed something wrong, something off about him. Was not only about being starving artist, but also he forgets things. He didn't even know my birthday for a very long time. He couldn't remember, and he would forget about meetings, forget about appointments, and another thing really big is he would do tons of things, tons of projects at the same time, juggling multiple projects, but none of the project actually gets done. So he is really good. He's really good at opening deals, opening projects, opening conversations, but lack of following up and following through. So I see him working really hard, doing a lot of things, knowing a lot of people, doing tons of projects, but there's no result coming out of it. And in daily life, I just felt he was not organized. He's kind of messy in his digital life and daily life. For example, if I say, hey, honey, we need to find documents about this car insurance or whatever, he had trouble of locating that file. So a lot of things here and there really bothered us. And to be honest, this is the reason I wanted to leave him at the time back then, because I was really frustrated. I didn't know what, like exactly what, because I knew he wanted to change. I knew he worked hard. I knew he wanted to change his life. And he had the motivation, but there was no action. There's no he driving in the driver's seat, but more like in autopilot. And that brought up how we discovered ADHD. It actually started with a huge car accident.
Yeah, it was the biggest car accident I've ever been in. And I've been in a ton of bumper to bumpers as an ADD driver. Like, it's,
if any ADHD friends out there, I think maybe you can relate to this.
You know. I mean, I used to have friends that would not want to ride in my car, period. But anyways, my car got totaled. All of my airbags exploded. My car probably spinned around a little bit. I was a little dazed, obviously, after it happened. When I realized all the car was exploded, I noticed that my car was covered in water, and the driver that hit me actually spun off and ran over a fire hydrant.
It was a pretty dramatic scene, and you said you were traumatized in that moment.
Yeah.
It was really scary.
Yeah.
Right after the accident, I was not mad about the accident. I knew accident would happen. That's okay. But I was super frustrated and mad and angry how he dealt with the accident the day after. Because I was like, okay, you have this big accident. It's really crucial. You call your car insurance company, you call other drivers, you gather witness, gather evidence, work on it. So you can minimize the damage of this car accident. No matter it's your fault or their fault, but you have to take action on it as soon as possible. But next day, he slept in, and he didn't call the insurance company right away. He almost I have to push him to do this. So I remember we had a huge argument, and I was like, how can you not realize how serious this problem is? Why you don't act on it? Please go by yourself. Really think about your life. What's wrong? What's fucking wrong about your life? Go think about it. And you can take over.
For those that know Los Angeles, I was, or Hollywood specifically, I was in the Arby's on Sunset. And I remember I was just thinking, I was like, man, what is wrong? Cause an accident like that where you literally could have died or you could have killed somebody else. And it obviously causes all sorts of other issues, kind of makes you wonder and think. And so I think a lot being ADD. I started thinking about my life, and I don't remember exactly what question I popped into Google.
I remember.
What was it?
You said, I have difficulties of completing tasks. And you have no idea. I thank God you formed the right question. And Google, thank you, Google. Google gave you the right answer.
Yeah, so ADD popped up.
So
and
that
it
question...
answered, hang on. It answered a few questions, and I remember taking a look at it, thinking like, okay, well, let's just see what this is. I don't know if this is me. And like, I read just a few answers. It basically, you know, I don't remember exactly what it said, but I remember saying, if you do this, or if you're like this, or if this happens to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, all those things happened to me. So I sent it to Anna, and she was...
So I specifically remember that day, that night, I was driving. You sent me this message. You specifically said, I might have this, and you gave me a link. And I was opening the link while I was driving, but like after a few seconds of scanning that page, I remember I pulled over immediately. I just knew the impulsivity, the hyperactivity, the lack of restraint. Every symptom, if you can Google ADHD symptom, like every symptom is like nail on the coffin. Is that the right word? Nail on the head. Every symptom is nail on the head. I just knew. I knew this life-changing discovery, and there's no, like, I don't know how other people can say this is a fake, because to me, it is 100% accurate. It was a spiritual awakening moment to me. And I said, oh my God, this is you. We find it. Because he talked about he had demons for a long time. And for that second, when this happened, I knew we find it.
So, you know, like, we didn't just take that one link, though, and go, oh, this is definitely it. We thought, okay, this looks likely, but let's do more research. So we started watching a ton of, like, YouTube videos on it, people talking about ADD and ADHD, especially in adults, and what it was, what it meant.
That I was so excited when he sent me the link, because I pulled over. I already starting doing my research on ADHD. That was the evening when he told me that he might have ADHD. And before this, like, we all know, we heard about people saying ADHD, ADD. My misconception back then was, oh, ADD, then that person just moves a lot, just hyperactive.
Yeah, hyperactive, and they get distracted. Now, I'm not incredibly hyperactive physically, but I'm very hyperactive mentally.
So I'm so glad back then when he told me, I didn't just, you know, shush him saying, oh, you're just finding excuses. I just immediately, I knew there's an intuition there. So that was the evening he told me. I pulled over, I stopped driving. And that evening, I already probably watched all the videos I can find on YouTube, and I read all the articles I can find on Google, the first 10 pages. And that evening, I already became ADHD expert.
Yeah, I mean, I actually took a bunch of online quizzes just to see where I landed. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you want to say, I like scored pretty high.
Yeah, ADHD, I think, has two types. One is like physical. Another type of ADHD, they're in their mind. Their hyperactive is within. And Craig definitely falls to the mind hyperactive. So that discovery definitely changed our life, because fast forward to today, our relationship is way stronger than before, and his life made some dramatic big changes, and he's just doing way better than before, because we do all the treatment we need to treat his ADHD. Does not mean this is not challenging, does not mean ADHD is easy to deal with. We face challenges every single day, but I think there's a big difference between treated ADHD and non-treated ADHD.
Exactly. You know, for a while, I like self-diagnosed. I wasn't officially diagnosed for, I don't know, like a year or 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so
he's saying self-diagnosed, just us doing some like online quizzes and reading articles and just know he had ADHD. But later on, you got doctor diagnosed.
Yeah. So at first, I was doing everything I could personally to just try to handle it. I refused to take medicine. So I used something called a bullet journal, which actually changed my life a lot. It became another brain for me. And I started setting a lot of reminders on my phone. And I started using a lot of lists. I'd always use lists. I used to have lists that listed lists. That's not an exaggeration. It was actually true, which is kind of dumb, but it happened. So yeah, I use every tool, and then one day I decided I would try some meds just to see what would happen, because
that's another episode. We'll talk
Okay.
about medication specifically. So baby, I want you to talk about after discovering ADHD, how was that a mind fuck for you, and how you see everything differently, and you have this aha moment of so many things have answers now.
Oh, let me tell you, it was a relief, actually, because, man, the CEO, I think it's JetBlue, right? Like, there's this famous quote that somebody said about him is like, I would trust you to organize a plane schedule of 10 different planes coming into an airport all around the same time, and for there not to be any trouble or collisions, but I would never trust you to pay your light bill on time.
Insert really quick. I pay our bills now because he easily forgets.
So it it was just a light bulb. I felt like I was like, oh, I relate to so many of these things, and I can't explain what kind of relief it was. Then I had to try to understand what it meant, how to deal with it, what were the tools that I could use to make it work for me instead of against me. Luckily, I have a partner who was open to it, and as we began to research and explore and then really understand living with it, and I should explain what it is, and I'll do that in 1 second, what ADHD really is. She was able to fill in some of the holes I lacked, and I'm able to fill in some of the other things. ADHD, a lot of people think hyperactivity, they move around a lot, or they think of that famous scene, I think it was in Up, where the Boy Scout kid was just like, oh, squirrel! And, they just get distracted very easily. And I wouldn't call it distraction. ADD is a lack of dopamine in your brain. And
Definitely.
Dopamine is the pleasure chemical. Like, it brings you pleasure. Like, you get pleasure out of writing or I don't know, doing some simple tasks.
I think boredom is your biggest enemy because you get bored so easily, and a simple task are just really, really not interesting enough for you to do them.
Yeah. It's an example, I do very well in chaos. I do very well when I have 5, 10 things going on all around me. When I write, I need to have music on and I need to be sitting in a busy cafe. My writing partner, my creative partner right now on the show I'm working on, he's the exact opposite. He doesn't want music. He needs to be sitting by himself on the porch, just doing his thing. I function better when there's more going on than when there is less. I have a hard time regulating it because I don't have enough dopamine. And so I like to do things that give me dopamine hits. That's the way I put it.
So for all the listeners out there who don't have ADHD, but you are in a relationship with ADHD person, your partner, I want to say that a lot of us take our
Executive function.
executive function, we take that for granted.
Explain what executive function is.
For example, I have a few bills to pay. The ability to plan them and to actually go to the computer and pay them, we take that for granted because we have a normal, healthy amount of dopamine. And we don't realize, okay, if we don't have that dopamine, it's extremely difficult for ADHD people to do the simple task. They can do complicated task, or they can do 100 tasks at the same time. But if you give them very easy, very simple, no fun task, it's like going to hell.
It is. It really is. I feel like so much resistance to doing it. And it could be the simplest, easiest thing. And I know intellectually, mentally, like it's not hard. It's just pressing a couple buttons, or it's not even difficult. There's not going to be any resistance from the other end. Like it's just, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Well, I couldn't. I'm much better now than I was.
Yeah, in this podcast, we will continue talking about all the solutions, all the treatment we use. He really is doing way better than a few years ago before discovering ADHD, and his life made some really big improvement. I want to bring this up because I see a lot of people who are in a relationship with ADHD partner. I see them complaining that ADHD partner does not do any house chores, they're not responsible, they're not reliable, and I feel you. I definitely feel you. I know how that feels, that your partner just don't pick up the trash, just they don't do car maintenance. Even the car breaks down, they won't do it, or they don't pay bills, or they don't pay their parking ticket. I know that, but I want to say to you guys who don't have ADHD is that it's not that they don't want to do it. It's the task itself doesn't produce any reward, doesn't produce any dopamine. So it's impossible to do it. Like scientists did a research on mouse. They took away the dopamine in the mouse brain. Mouse would just starve themselves to death and they won't eat because dopamine really is linked to motivation. You take motivation away, you just don't want to do anything. So they may come off as they're not reliable, they're irresponsible. But we as partner, we need to come up with creative ways to make things more fun, more interesting for them, and adding rewards like positive reinforcement, like thank you, like appreciation. All those things would help.
Yeah, and it's not only that. Like the person with ADHD needs to come up with the rewards. Like, one of my systems, one of my personal tools is like, okay, if I finish this task that I'm not really looking forward to doing, whatever it may be, paying a bill or like making a phone call to talk about getting new car insurance or whatever the situation may be, whatever it is, I tell myself, okay, after I do that, I can, have Oreos. Like I love Oreos. They're like my kryptonite. But it's something, it doesn't have to be something giant. It could be something really, really small. It could be like, oh, after I do that, I can go to my favorite coffee shop and get a cup of coffee. Or I can watch this video that I've been wanting to watch. Or whatever it may be. I don't know. But
And I think every ADHD is different. And I think this episode, my biggest goal for all the listeners out there is that please don't ignore or underestimate it, how much ADHD can affect your life and your partner's life. Because we personally know some friends who have ADHD, they don't take this seriously, or they just refuse to think ADHD is real. And we can see how damaging that could be as untreated ADHD.
Yeah, amen. And philosophically, ADHD really is just a different way of thinking. We think that we're still functional. We're still capable. We can still do a lot of things, but there are situations that not only because of our personalities, but because the way our brains work, that if I was in versus Anna, I would thrive way better than she would. And part of it is personality, but part of it is because, if I'm working an event or doing a film, I can manage 10 things at once because it shoots off dopamine all the time.
Yeah.
Like just constantly firing instead of like a couple, I don't know, the exact amount, but instead of just a little bit and then it just kind of fades away and I'm back to like nothing.
So, baby, how do you think that you personally really feel the big difference between treated and untreated? And what do you want to say to those people, ADHD friends out there who are not treating it or didn't take this seriously? How would you want to encourage them to actually, research on this, study this, and treat it?
Well, first off, I think a lot of ADHD people are out of the box thinkers, and they like, a lot of them seem to be like to read people and like to work rooms. And once you have an understanding of what ADHD really is and how your thought process works different than other people, it's kind of mind-blowing. Like, I was totally, like, understanding what it was gave me so much dopamine. I mean, I would go off in my head for days just thinking about it and considering it and like really understanding it. And
you can use it as a tool.
Yeah, right? There are situations where you will see it's like, oh, I've got this. This is like, I can handle this because this is the way my brain works. And I can do it better than, some of the other people, other loved ones around me. But also like handling it, understanding it, coming to peace with it. It brings a lot of confidence and even satisfaction. It also makes life a bit easier. I mean, I still have resistance to some things at times. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get motivated to do something, especially during quarantine. But it's not impossible. Like before, it felt impossible.
So what do you think are the reasons that a lot of ADHD people out there don't even admit they have it or don't want to treat it?
Because they simply don't understand it. It's misinterpreted often. I mean,
stereotype from society.
I had an ADHD coach at one point to help me understand it better and get into it. And I'm sure we're going to go into depth about all the tools in a different episode, but he even said, he's like, ADHD shouldn't be called ADHD. There's other names for it because it's not really about being distracted. It's more about looking for new ways to feel excited, to feel stimulated.
Looking for stimulations.
Yeah, stimulation hits, dopamine hits.
Yeah. So I guess like we rambled so long, but my intention really is to call out all those, ADHD people, friends, and your partners who doesn't have ADHD. I want to call you guys out saying that please don't take this lightly, because this is a very big reveal of your life. And if you get to know this ADHD world, get to know the mindset, and you can use it as a tool, you can really change your life and you can save your relationship. Because I know if we didn't discover ADHD, I could see myself leaving him. I already left him once because we didn't know what was the reason. Something was just so off. So I really believe getting to know ADHD and treat it with different methods, solutions, couple therapy, even medications, a lot of solutions out there can improve your life, change your life, because I feel like our life has changed.
And, one reason a lot of people think it's not real is because it's kind of hidden.
Yeah.
It's so strange because once you understand it, you will see how subtle it is.
It's very subtle.
But that subtle makes such a big difference. It's like it's really kind of mind-blowing.
I guarantee you a lot of ADHD people out there thinking, I'm smart. I'm an out-box thinker.
You are smart. You are clever.
Intelligent.
You are intelligent.
I'm very capable. How come my life is a disaster? How come so and so, they're not smart than me? They are not intelligent. They're even dumber than me. How come they are living their best life? What's wrong? And that's because you're not treated.
And you don't understand it yet.
So I really want to like call out all those friends out there. Please take this seriously, and consider subscribing to our podcast, because we will share with you guys all the struggles, the challenges, the solutions, the methods we're using to treat ADHD. And our journey is not done, because this is really a daily challenge. We talk so confidently here does not mean it's easy for us. I don't even know how many times I cry over dealing with ADHD. It's a really big and really heavy issue we're dealing with for years. So the upcoming episode, we want to talk about a very special treatment, which is medication. Because this is a very controversial topic. We struggled with medications too for a very long time. I didn't want him to use medication, and he didn't want to use medication. But we will talk about our journey about medication and all the stereotypes and the ups and downs, pros and cons about using medication, and how to safely use medication. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm down. I'll tell you how I use mine. We'll get into that, but we're getting ready to end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to actually leave it with this. For all those those fellow ADHDers out there, and those ADDers that are listening to this, please note that whatever your life may be like, know that ADD can be like a super skill and a tool.
Can be enhancer.
You are intelligent. A lot of ADHDers actually fare fairly high on like various IQ tests and various tests that test your brain. You may not be, I mean, some of you probably are, but some of you probably aren't as book smart as others. But you're often more clever than a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You're generally charismatic and can grab the attention of someone fairly easily. You're out of the box thinkers, you're creative, you can work very long hours without ever feeling tired, because God knows I can do that. I could work 20 hours in a day and be fine, as long as it's the right things. So that, we have our deficiencies for sure. And in this society, which is not built for ADHD brains, in American society at least, it's not necessarily built for ADHD brains. We struggle a bit, but it doesn't mean we're stupid. It doesn't mean we're horrible people, and it doesn't mean we're bad people. And I think anybody that knows you personally would tell you that, and probably have told you that. We just have to learn how to deal with it, how to make it work for us instead of against us.
We would love to hear from you guys, whether you are ADHD, friend, or you're in a relationship with your ADHD partner. Please, reach out. You can find us at Twitter, ADD Relationship, and our email is adhdrelationship@gmail.com. And both Craig and I are on social media as well. My handle is Anna Pan Films, ANNAPANFILMS.
And I'm at the Derbied one, THEDERBIEDONE.
Yeah, we really look forward to hearing from you guys, because we want to know what struggles you guys are being through and what topics we should talk about. Yeah, and I will put all the links in this podcast description so you can easily find information there. Please subscribe to us and stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll be talking about medication.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you. Bye. See you soon.
Much love.